Once upon a time, and I mean last week or last year, there was a girl called Lizzie Dripping who lived in this village, Little Hemlock. Her real name was Penelope Arbuckle, but nobody ever called her that. Lizzie Dripping is a name used a lot in villages round here. It's not meant to be unkind. In fact, it's quite affectionate, really. But it's used for the sort of girl who goes around with her head in the clouds, dreaming all the time that life is more exciting than it really is.
This is different to most of the TV series we're going to be looking at. Firstly, it's aimed at younger children, maybe 6 to 9 years old. Secondly, it's not designed to be scary or creepy. However, through good acting and direction, it managed to scare children over the 2 series and can still come across as incredibly creepy even today. The stories take place in a sleepy country village called Little Hemlock and centre around a young girl named Penelope Arbuckle. She's called Lizzie Dripping by her friends and family, which is a local term for a girl with a lively and active imagination and a bit of a daydreamer. In the first episode of Series 1, Lizzie comes across a witch in a local churchyard, and from this, a series of misadventures and mishaps ensue. Each episode is a story in its own right, but there are plot threads and characters which run throughout. The first series is introduced by Lizzie's teacher, Miss Platt, as an introduction to each story. In the second series, the introduction is gone, and she only appears in the very last episode. Lizzie Dripping was a BBC TV series which ran for 2 series and a total of 9 25-minute episodes. The BBC gets a bad press sometimes with proper English voices being required, but Lizzie Dripping is filmed around Nottinghamshire and written by local writer Helen Creswell, complete with local accents. Tina Heath plays Lizzie with accomplishment, and her facial expressions during the narration really bring her character to life, and you totally fail to realise that at the time of filming, Tina Heath was 20. Sonia Dresdel's The Witch is not like any witch has seen on kids' TV before or since, more akin to the Wicked Witch in The Wizard of Oz. Her teeth are rotten, her nose is long, and even her black dress and hat are dusty and dirty. No wonder kids my age were terrified of her. Personally, I can vaguely remember Lizzie Dripping from my childhood. I can clearly remember the witch in the graveyard. I'm not sure if this is what gave me my fear of witches or my fascination with graveyards. On watching both series several times over the last few years, what strikes me the most is how little the witch is actually involved in the stories. There's even one she doesn't appear in, but it's a witch I remember most. Also, don't expect convoluted plots. Over the 25 minutes of each episode, very little actually happens. Initially, the BBC seemed loath to release any episodes, with only 3 episodes from the second series having been made available on VHS back in the day. The complete 2-series set was finally released on DVD in 2017, and fortunately is still available now. The only episode missing is the initial story, Lizzie Dripping and the Orphans, which was recorded in 1972 for Jackanory Playhouse, and is missing from the BBC archives, presumably wiped. The video quality of Series 2 is fine, but Series 1 looks particularly washed out. The series was accompanied by a number of books by Helen Creswell: Lizzie Dripping by the Sea, Lizzie Dripping and the Little Angel, Lizzie Dripping and the Witch, and also a 5th book published 20 years later in 1994 called Lizzie Dripping on Holiday. There is also a Jackanory from 1992 called Lizzie Dripping in the Snow, read by Patricia Routledge, available on YouTube, and I'll put the link to this in the description below. In the end, Lizzie Dripping succeeds due to its quality casting. Tina Heath is best known for her work on Blue Peter between 1979 and 1980, where she became the first presenter to become pregnant and have an ultrasound scan live on TV. She is rarely seen on our screens afterwards, but did return for a Blue Peter special in 2005, and has also recorded some Lizzie Dripping audiobooks. As I said before, the role of a witch isn't big, but Sonia Dresdel makes the role hers. Before TV, she worked extensively in the theatre as well as movies. She died, unfortunately, in 1976, aged 66, from lung cancer. Barbara Mitchell, who plays Lizzie's mother, was one of those familiar faces on TV during the 1960s and 70s, and is perhaps best known for her role of Ruth Pollitt in For the Love of Ada. She died in 1977 from breast cancer at the age of 48. Jane Lowe, who played the busybody Anne Blodwen, complete with the Welsh accent, has been acting since the late 1960s, and even at the age of 80 is still acting, cropping up in Coronation Street a few years ago. The outdoor filming mainly took place around the small village of Eakring in Nottingham, which was home to the author Helen Cresswell, and 50 years later, Eakring is still a quiet village. The graveyard is in the grounds of St Andrew's Church, and is still easy to see exactly where the witch was sitting in those episodes in the 1970s. The episode Lizzie Dripping by the Sea was filmed in Mablethorpe on the Lincolnshire coast, which is still a popular spot for Nottinghamshire holidaymakers. Nowadays, Lizzie Dripping isn't easy watching, and it has to be said that the stories have dated quite badly. But this doesn't take away from Tina Heath's performance as Lizzie Dripping and Sonia Dresdel's as the witch, which would match anything you're going to see on kids' TV nowadays. Don't expect your own kids to watch this episode and be captivated. As I said earlier, not much happens in each episode. However, if you're my age, you can sit back and wallow in nostalgic TV, because TV like this will never be made again.
That witch and me, we could have been friends. Goodbye then, witch. And I do believe in you, you know. Even though you're not here. Even if I don't know your name. And witch, I'm coming back tomorrow, witch. Will you be there? Goodbye then, witch. Till tomorrow.